My name is Andy Stevens, and I'll be your instructor for this class, and I'm glad we're able to do this together. First of all, I want you to know at the top of the class that all this is done with prayer and with the recognition of God as my Lord, Christ as my Savior, and the Holy Spirit as my power. So just make sure you understand where I'm coming from. That being said and established, I want you to know that I expect y'all to have a blast. I hope you do. Electronic media is an exciting field to be part of, an exciting industry to be involved in. I've been involved with electronic media. Well, I've been a fan of radio since I was a kid, but been involved in the industry since 1979 when I had my first internships when I was in high school. Started an internship at a television station while working as a volunteer at a local radio station. So if you haven't started working in the industry yet, your career started yesterday. It doesn't start tomorrow. So you need to be looking at places where you can get involved, whether it's at the school or, if you have connections with the church where you can work in the media or other organizations, or maybe with the local station, radio or television, wherever you can get involved. Start now. Don't wait for that someday. Take advantage of the opportunities around you because people already are. This is my pitch. When I did all this stuff as a high school senior, I was weird in the fact that I was different. People say I'm still kind of different now, but that's another story. It's not so different now. People are getting involved. We have students that come in already shooting short films, already working camera for their churches and for local production companies, doing a variety of things, doing their own audio productions, their own multi-track audio production, their own music. So, yeah, I know that some of you who've been watching this are already doing this. But for the rest of you, you need to start getting involved. Go ahead, come get involved with the vibe, with the vision, or wherever you can find a place to dip your toe into the water and dive right in. So, that being said, quickly about my background. I started, like I said, when I was in high school back in 1979. Class is 1979, Ben Franklin High School, New Orleans, Louisiana. Then went to Baylor. While I was at Baylor, I was also doing freelance production in the summer. I did an internship at John Corbel Video Enterprises, and then was brought back the next summer for more work. Wound up spending time, my senior year of college, on top of teaching as a lab instructor. I also worked 40 hours a week as a news photographer at KWTX. Went from there on to graduate school and continued to do video production as a freelancer for Allen Bradley Industrial Video. They were for the Allen Bradley plant. They manufactured electronic components up in Milwaukee. From there, worked from Lifeway, what is now Lifeway Christian Resources. At the time, it was a Baptist Sunday School Board, remote production manager, and worked with a variety of people, traveled all over the country, shooting in a variety of locations, designed our multi-camera audio production system, and had a blast. I enjoyed doing this stuff with video production. I actually got to work on the original tapings of Experiencing God with Henry Blackaby. I got to run the camera to get the shots from the side as people were looking, writing their notes, as well as taking questions from the audience. That was my camera that I was on. So it was fun. From there, I went into teaching for about 6 years, taught at Missouri Baptist College, now university. Then went back into, as God led, I went back down to Galveston, Texas, where I worked with ABW, which is a audiovisual support company. What does that have to do with electronic media? Well, we set up convention and conference support, which meant the big screens, the big sound systems, data projection. I was constantly having to design systems because I was a sales manager as well as a show coordinator, and I was training facilitator. Oh, and I was also an ops manager. So yeah, I did a whole lot of things with them. And I got to put my hands on all kinds of equipment. Had a blast with it, but I also had to do budgeting, planning, sales, etc. From there, I went to work I was a bivocational minister when I was in Texas, and I went to full-time ministry up in Alabama, where I actually ran a television station, a Christian television station, and worked in a local church as their media minister. So it was a commercial station, so I was sales manager there and did television sales, as well as the news manager, news director. As general manager, I wore all kind of hats, including janitor at times, and rebuilt the system there, the control room. We had an electrical storm that knocked out some other major systems. Actually took us through the transition from 3/4-inch tape to doing everything and archiving digitally. So it was quite an adventure over 6 years. And then from there, God led to here, where I teach at North Greenville. I advise a radio station on campus, WNGR, The Vibe, and I advise the on-campus television, Closer to Television system. Also advise the yearbook, and we're doing some exciting things with that. Moving to a totally online yearbook. Don't know of many schools that are doing that yet, but that's where it's headed, so that's what we're doing. In my spare time, in my spare time, I also work for Channel 40, doing working as a handheld camera operator, maybe doing some show producing as well for them with sports. I work for ESPN3 and have some other clients that I'm working with. And in radio, I do fill-in work for WORD. Actually, I've filled in for Bob McLean, if you're familiar with WORD, a few times, and one of his substitutes whenever he has to be out. Why am I telling you that? I guess I'm trying to say, whenever you're going to learn a lot of stuff, you want to know that the person who's teaching you has been there, done that, especially in a field like broadcasting. So I, like the rest of my colleagues, have been there, done that, and still do that. We're still involved in the media, and we still enjoy it. Okay, call that the credibility pitch if you want to. Now, let me tell you what we're going to be doing in this class. First of all, it is an online class. I've got my notes over here if you wonder what I'm glancing to. It's an online class, but I want you to do your homework. Right here is the book. Ta-da! Communication Technology Update and Fundamentals. Yes, I'm looking at the camera as I do this. You will need your book. You will need your book because it is a good, up-to-date summary and exploration of where we are in the industry today. My lectures will come partially from the book. At least they will guide you through some of the major themes. I want you to do some of your own thinking too. Now, I will have some other lectures that are, don't think the history in this book is complete, the history of the industries as well as technology. Those two areas, I don't think they go into the depth that I want, at least of the traditional technologies. So I have other lectures that will be part of this class, and they're a little bit longer. I think they're about an hour or hour plus per. One about the history of traditional broadcasting. The book does go into more detail about the new media, so I'm not going to have you watch that lecture. And then about the traditional broadcasting technologies. There are some fundamental concepts that you need to understand. The book takes a glance at, but doesn't really sit down and stare. Well, I think you need to stare, so I'm going to add those two sections with more extended lectures. Otherwise, these lectures that you watch will basically hit some high points and more set up for you to for questions that you need to ask and themes you need to pay attention to while you're reading the textbook. So why in the world did I choose this textbook? Well, Augie, the guy, Augie Grant, the one who wrote this book, is out at USC, and not because I'm a Gamecocks fan, but he stays up to date. The previous book we were using is like $160. This is only $40 or thereabouts. So maybe between $40 and $50. So that's another reason I like this book. Yeah, I've got kids in college, and I know what it's like to pay for the textbooks. But what I really like is that not only is he up to date with what's in the book, but he has online access, so that for newsletters that he continues to update, so that you can be aware of what's going on in the industry. So this book actually teaches beyond this course, because you can go back to those websites and continue to stay updated. So please take advantage of it. Please take advantage of the technologies. We address things like telephones. Oh, isn't that exciting? You're going, yeah, right. How about digital imaging, photography? I'm just looking at some of the headings right here. Digital audio, digital video, video games, gaming industry, ebooks, personal computers, cinema, and digital signage, which is a growing media outlet. Interactive TV, multi-channel TV, etc. So it's a wide variety of the new and emerging technologies. Okay, so I call this class basically a data dump, because there's so much data. Now, how does this course work? Well, you're going to get the intros, the basic summaries of content, and these lectures online. We're also going to set up a Facebook page. I've got, you befriend me on Facebook. You friend me on Facebook, and then I invite you to the class. Andrew Stevens, North Greenville University. If you put that in, you should be able to find me, and I'll also try to find you and get you all involved. And then in that Facebook group, we'll use that as our discussion forum. I'm going to propose a question for discussion, and then I expect at least 3 or 4 feedbacks, interactions with you on each of the questions. And there'll be questions for each chapter, so you got to pay attention to the Facebook. Secondly, you will, for each chapter, you're going to write 100 words, and there are 20 chapters, so that's 20 100-word essays. And you're saying, oh no, I got to write. Yeah, but what's a tweet? I don't know how many characters, but take a theme, take an idea. Let's say if we talk in this chapter 1, he's going to talk about the ecosystem, the communication technology ecosystem. Okay, take a particular aspect that he addresses and then examine it, and I'll tell you how in just a minute. But you're going to write a 100-word essay. You email that to me at my email address at awstevens@ngu.edu. That's how you talk to me. Now, other things. You will have 2 essays, and I have a description of those that you'll be able to watch. One is your life goals essay. The other is your career goals essay. These 2 essays are part of your grade. I've got the grade breakdown in the syllabus, which is on Blackboard. And I want you to think through these things. And when you read the assignment, when you watch the assignment video, you'll understand more detail about the assignment. You also will write a resume. I want you to come out of this class with a usable resume that you can hand to someone. Be your start into internships, whatever it might be, but you need to know the basics. You will have to turn one in your senior year anyway. It's part of your capstone class, but you're going to have need of it before. So you might as well get started. Remember, your career started yesterday. What else? There will be tests. The tests are going to be multiple choice, simple enough. I'm big on vocabulary. Why? Because we talk in shorthand. I can say something to the effect of, well, you need to make sure you adjust the electronic pulse that holds the horizontal framing of the picture in line, so that it will not jump whenever we cut from camera to camera. Or I could say tweak the horizontal sync. Which one is more precise? Well, I just need to tweak the or calibrate the horizontal sync. I know what that is, and so would someone else who knows it, other than going through a whole paragraph of description. A lot of the jargon, a lot of the language in electronic media is like that. And if you want to look ignorant on site, don't know the language. So I don't want you to be ignorant on show site or when you talk with somebody in your internship. I don't want you to be ignorant as you're reading the book. So vocabulary is big. You're going to have 4 exams with vocabulary, and there will be a cumulative final on the vocabulary. Now you're going, right now about that. Well, the vocabulary exams, the 4 tests throughout the course of the semester, or this summer term, or through the semester, they'll be vocabulary based. Your final exam will be a 50 question multiple choice test that I can pull from any one of the glossaries throughout the semester. And if your grade on the final exam, I will be willing to substitute for your lowest test grade during the semester. Now, don't use that as an excuse to blow one of your exams. All right? Don't use it, just not take an exam, because some people unscrupulous might do that. But not y'all, I know that. But I know that sometimes you just have a bad day. Or maybe there was a particular section that wasn't your best, but by the end of the semester you got it. So because of that, I will substitute your final exam grade for your lowest test grade if your final exam grade is better than your lowest test grade. Fair enough. So you can kind of help redeem your grade by working hard towards the end. Okay, what else? How to use the book. We've already discussed that. I'm looking at my notes over here. The essays, again, these are the 100-word essays that you will email to me on each chapter. Basically, you're just going to take an idea from that chapter. Let's say when we talk about history and you watch that, you might say the sinking of the Titanic. Well, that's one aspect of broadcast history. How is that? Well, because the sinking of the Titanic was the trigger for the Radio Act of 1912, which was the first federal regulation of the broadcast industry, of radio broadcasting. So, you can see, that does relate to broadcasting. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, except you'd say it in 100 words. What else? Okay, let's get into the lecture now for Chapter 1. This book talks about what is called the communication technology ecosystem. Basically, it says that the broadcast industry does not exist in a vacuum, but rather there are a variety of intervening forces, if you will, technology, the role of how people use the media, programming, etc. And he calls it the ecosystem. And he has a very, this is Augie Grant, and he has a very elaborate way of looking at it. And I want you to look at what he proposes for what is the communication technology ecosystem. This is one way of looking at it, and it's significant. And I want you to read it, and I want you to understand it. I want to give you an alternative way as well. You need to be able to look at things from a variety of perspectives. First of all, there is something called traditional media. That would be radio, television, books, newspapers, magazines, the cable, and movies and cinema. Okay, traditional media. These are basically what happened before the great digital divide, if you will. Okay. When we talk about traditional media, we're talking about a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but also a lot of isolated industries and very one-directional. Now, what do I mean by one-directional? Somebody somewhere decides that you want to watch a show about a group of people stranded on a desert island where they're trying to figure out how to get off the island, put a bunch of people with different personalities, and that'll be a fun situation comedy, if you will. And then they produce that show, and they see that it works, so they produce more of them, and more of them. And then we have Gilligan's Island that runs for several years. And basically the only feedback that they get is whether or not it scores rating points. Very one direction. And that is basically the way traditional media work. Someone makes a decision somewhere, it gets relayed down, it gets checked out, focus groups, things like that, audience analysis, and then it's sent out, and then you go to where you receive the media. You go and you watch Gilligan's Island when it comes on television. You go to the magazine stand and pick up the magazine. You do what you go to your car and turn on the radio, and you receive whatever they send you. Now, if they do the job right, you want to come back and back and back. And so you're willing to go to their delivery system. That's traditional media. But something has happened now, and that's called convergence. Basically, with the advent of digital technology, digital encoding, we now have a very interactive, very dynamic system of media production, media distribution, media consumption, and media feedback. Okay, for example, I like to play the dulcimer. I have a couple of videos that I've produced, and I literally have a worldwide audience. And not huge. I've got maybe 1,000 views on a couple of them. But I have a worldwide audience. Our little radio station, barely gets out 5 miles in traditional broadcasting, but people tune in. We have emails from New Zealand, from South America, of people who listen to the station. So we have a worldwide audience delivered through the internet. Now, that, the radio station, even though it is via the internet, is still, they're listening to what we send them. So it's still one way. But now it's a much less expensive way of getting it out, rather than having to go through getting an FCC license, setting up a transmitter, etc. So internet makes a lot of things possible that have not been possible before. But internet also gives some other expressions. YouTube. My daughters have produced videos. Felicity Larson, the president of the American Girl Dolls fan club. At least that's what it's a spoof. It's a parody. For a video, I was directing for the Nashville Connection, and I went and shot an American flag that we were going to use as a background for a bunch of the events during our segments during the gala. So I set up a camera, shot this flag, locked down the camera, and then slowed it down to slow-mo, so we have this gentle flowing flag. I'm hitting over 3,000 views. Why? Just because somebody needed a flag. Anybody can produce anything, put it on the internet via YouTube or Facebook or whatever. So we have what is called the democratization of media. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad. I see some stuff that's posted as true because it's on the internet that is totally bogus. And if you've heard about how people use cyberbullying and the explosion of porn on the internet, people will abuse the technology. But democratization has moved the distribution and production from the hands of the big boys, if you will, to basically anybody. Somebody sitting around here like this with a webcam can produce a video and send it out anywhere to anybody in the world. So, the democratization has revolutionized how we see the role of media. Media has become much more pervasive part of our lives. I'm sitting right here. I'm working on a MacBook Pro. I've got my lecture notes right over here on my iPad. Of course, I have my cell phone, which actually is also usable for I can go here and go to the internet if I want to. Voila. Let's see, is it going to come up? Did I hit the right button? There we go. Yeah. So and now I can get to the internet, and I literally have a device that I can use to access the worldwide body of information and I carry it around in my pocket, or not in my pocket, but on a case on my belt. Information is that accessible. So it's going to not going to, it has revolutionized. In fact, it's even revolutionized the way you learn. One of the things I want to tell you is that you're going to say, why do we have to memorize all this stuff? Because I can just look it up. I've got my phone right here. Because if you don't know it to begin with, you don't know that you need to look it up. Give you an example. Because of my study when I was in undergrad, I learned about the importance of an EAS system, the emergency alert system. When I went to this TV station where I worked, they didn't have an EAS. For them, EAS was a local guy who figured himself to be the weather guy would turn on his emergency radio and then make periodic announcements over the air. That was their emergency alert system. I'm like, no, FCC wouldn't go for that. And we went and bought an EAS system and installed it so that we would be in FCC compliance. Well, I have a friend who just wasn't quite up to date and keeping track with his community concerns, issues, etc., surveys. He got hit by $40,000 in fines for his TV station. So if you don't know this stuff, you're setting yourself up for some possible hefty damages. So that's why you need to know what you know, and you need to know what you don't know that you need to go look up. So don't just say, oh, that's okay, I'll cram before the test and then I'll forget it. You need to be able to carry stuff out of here. It will be practical. There's a lot of information, but it will be practical. Okay, now, getting back to convergence. What has happened is that instead of having radio here, television here, print here, pictures here, movies here, whatever, it's all available right here. With this computer, there you see, so I'm pointing at my computer, doing my Uncle Sam impersonation. I can watch a movie on Netflix. I could do a telephone call. I can use Skype and talk to my dad. I can also tune into the radio station. I can build my own radio station and listen to it. I could watch a movie. I could watch television. If I want to, I go on the internet and I can read newspapers from all over the world. I can read magazines, all through digital. It's called convergence. That's what I'm talking about. All of this information is being translated to bytes and bits, and it's sent out over the internet through a server, and then I pick it up and I retrieve back what I want to watch. Convergence. It has, one of the reasons I left the previous book, it's talking about this could have tremendous implications. Duh! That was the obvious statement of the year. It actually has had a tremendous impact on how we view information, how we view our entertainment, and how we view ourselves. So, convergence. Now, a couple of things that I want you to understand in electronic media that impact electronic media. There are four broad themes. Now, this is not necessarily addressed this way in the Communication Technology Update and Fundamentals. But I want you to get these things and keep these things in mind. These four themes are technology, programming, economics, and regulation. Basically, the electronic media live with these four themes constantly. You've got to have the technology, and usually the technology is kind of the spark. They say, oh, this is interesting. What would it be like if? Whether we're figuring out how electromagnetic energy waves work with Mr. Hertz, or whether it's somebody working in their garage trying to build a personal computer. It's an experiment with the technology. But you're going to have technology, and if you're going to do anything with it, you got to make so people will want it. And programming is what we use to make people want to use a technology. Radio was the general audience media for a long time. And they had a variety of programming, which was used to draw in audience to listen to commercials or to listen to the sponsors. Then when television came along, now television became the large audience media. So radio had to go into a flurry. It actually had a downturn until they figured out formatting. Since we can't have, which means basically, since we can't have the whole audience, let's try to find a specialty audience. And radio went from being the broad, the big audience medium to the more intimate, conversational style. In fact, now, if you work in radio, you don't think in terms of Mr. and Miss America and all the ships at sea. No, you're that invisible companion sitting next to the driver in the car when you're on the drive time morning or evening drive time show. So it's moved to a much more intimate medium. And television, big, broad, mass media audience, yes, until cable. Because with cable, again, we started niching up the audience. It's called niche formatting, niche programming. We started dividing up the audience once again. And videos moved again to a very intimate medium. I can watch my Doctor Who on my cell phone through Netflix. Yes, I'm a Doctor Who fan. So, and Fringe, whatever they happen to have on Netflix, or I can watch North Greenville play football through one of the live streaming websites. So it's become much more intimate, if you will. And this points to a trend that you will see as media continues to grow. It's what Larry Sweet refers to as the Weld Curve. Now, it used to be, the idea was a bell curve, everybody in the big middle. And that's the way traditional media worked. To try to get, the planning was, let's have programming that'll attract the largest group. It doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if it's any significance. In fact, they called it the least objectionable programming. Let's see if we can get this big middle. Well, the big middle isn't there anymore. We've become such a diversified, some would say polarized, culture that instead you have more of an edge. You don't have a big middle, but okay. Let me do this right. I'm going to look at my fingers. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That's the well in the middle. Not too many people there. Instead, you have people on the edges of the audience over here. So we have small televisions, and then we have 55-inch TVs. You don't see too many 13 inches unless you have a specialized application. No, we have it either portable, so we can take it with us, or we have it huge, so we have our own built-in movie theater. So that's another phenomenon. We're seeing more specialized programming, whether it's specialized in terms of television content, radio, whatever it might be. The idea is that it now works more for the targeted specific audience rather than the broad audience. And that leads to the next question, next theme, which is economics. So we've gone through technology, programming, which we say has moved from broad audience to smaller audience, to economics. Now, wouldn't you want the biggest audience? Not necessarily. You may get a huge audience Saturday mornings, but if you're selling golf clubs, why do you want to reach the kids who are watching Bugs Bunny or whatever the current, I know Bugs Bunny isn't current, but whatever the current Saturday morning cartoons. Although even that's changed now because with cable, you have Cartoon Network, and I don't know even if many cartoons are even on Saturday mornings. But you use the programming to target potential buyers, not just viewers. So if you want to advertise golf clubs, you don't go to the local cooking show. You would go to the Masters, the broadcast of the Masters. You would advertise on websites that are related to golf and issues. You might go to the Golf Channel. That's where you're going to get golfers. So you have programming targeted to specific audiences, and then you sell those audiences to the people who see them as potential buyers. For example, one of our sponsors, ROTC, for the radio station, they're looking at college students, high school and college, who are interested in the programming, the offerings of ROTC. We will talk to maybe local restaurants in the area where students might want to go if we wanted sponsors. Why? Because that's the audience we carry that might be interested in the services they have to offer. That would be niche programming leading to the specialized target audiences. Let me back up with economics. Economics basically is that we have to pay for things. When I ran a TV station, we were a commercial station to support the station, but we were a ministry. We paid our taxes. We weren't tax exempt. We paid all our taxes. Don't worry, it's fully legal. But we didn't necessarily have to produce a major profit to shareholders. In fact, I remember when we were there, we actually paid taxes because we actually made a profit. And I was saying, yay, we've done it. Now I went to talk to my accountant and say, okay, what do I need to do so I don't have to pay a whole lot of taxes? So, where do I need to invest the money back in to the station? Because we didn't have shareholders that, we had to turn a profit for. So our money really went back into operations and all that. But we had to pay the light bill. We had to pay the transmitter power. We were a low-power radio station, but it cost a lot of money to pump all that electricity to keep broadcasting 24/7. I had to pay salaries. I had to pay for both my full-timers as well as part-timers and contract people. I had to pay FCC fees for my license and things of that sort. I had to pay my lawyer fees because I had someone who knew what was going on with the regulations, because I didn't have time to worry about it. So he kept his ear to the buzz and would let me know about things that related to me at my little station. So, to make a long story short, somebody has to pay for it. You may not like advertising on your internet, but it's the advertising on the internet that makes it possible for you to watch a TV show without having to pay a fee. Simple enough. If they can't make the money from advertisers, then they can try to make the money from you or some combination thereof. So advertising or subscription fees are what enable the industries to produce the content, the programming that you want to see. When we move into copyright law, that's an important issue because copyright protections are there so that the people who are the content producers will receive the fruits of their labors. We have students who produce music, and that's a lot of work. You know how much work it is, and it's right that you get paid for your work. Some people think, oh, I'll just, steal these MP3s. It's not really stealing. It should be free because it's on the internet. As people steal MP3s or pirate movies and all that, well, that means the industries that produce that are going to have to look somewhere else to generate their revenue. When I worked for the Baptist Sunday School Board, I worked for the BTN. Like I said, it is now Lifeway, but then it was the Baptist Sunday School Board. I worked for BTN, Baptist Telecommunication Network, and we had a scrambled signal for a long time. It was a direct feed to the churches with educational programming. Well, there were a number of issues regarding the support for it, but when we went unscrambled because we were having technical issues, we literally had churches that said, oh, it's free now, we're not going to pay. It wasn't free. They still should have been subscribers, but since it was unscrambled, they said, oh, we can take it without paying, technically. What happened with that revenue stream? Well, it got to where BTN was not producing the revenue and was becoming a drain. So you know what they did? They shut down BTN because it wasn't generating revenue. So If you want to have your favorite artist to continue to produce MP3s or whatever music that you can get, well, when you don't pay them, they have to look for another way to make their money. May shoot concert tickets up higher. They may stop producing records. I'm sorry, old school. They may stop producing tunes that they distribute as MP3s, CDs, whatever. So, yeah, it's got to be paid for. Simple enough. If I'm going to do something and spend my time into it, but it does not produce the income that I need to support my family, to keep the roof over our heads, to pay for my technology, to do whatever, well, I'm going to have to find some means to support my family. And if I can't support them doing what I'm doing here, then I have to go somewhere else and spend more time doing it there. And I may not be able to produce music anymore. Or I might not be able to produce videos or whatever. So economics are a critical part of the electronic media industries. The fourth aspect is regulation. When we move into, later on, we'll talk more about the history of regulation. But basically, in a nutshell, regulation should help provide a stable playing field for those who are involved in the industry. What do I mean by that? Well, to give you an example from the history of broadcasting, in the early days of radio, a bunch of people just, were getting a license or just starting to broadcast with or without a license. And if, let's say I had a radio station and I was competing against you, and you were in a building a block or so away, and I had your frequency. Well, I might get right next to your frequency with my transmitter and boost my power so that it blocks you out. And now I'm the only person people hear. So that would be competition, right? I'm just got a better transmitter. Well, then you go invest in a bigger transmitter and you blast me out. And we're just pouring all this money, having this battle. And it got to where there was so much radio interference going on that nobody could be heard. So it was actually the broadcasters that asked the government to set up a system of frequency allocations and power allocations so that people could to invest their money in a guarded, protected industry. You say, well, let me give you an example. I own this house, okay? I'm paying money to the bank because they've loaned me the money, so right now they own the house as a lien. But theoretically, I own my house. Let me go ahead and adjust this since I'm leaning back. So what does that mean? Does that mean that I own, that I physically own the land that this house is on? How do you own anything? What it says, though, is the government respects, I hope so, at least, my claim to title to this land. And the laws of the land guarantee me that my investment in this property grants me the right to use this property as I see fit to, if you will, exploit the resources of, and to develop my own life. Now, within the codes and such as that, I can't set up a pig farm in my backyard, because this is not zoned for that. But within the accepted, defined parameters, I can make use of this property, and the government will respect that. Otherwise, why would I invest money in a house if Joe down the street could just come down and say, you know what, I like your trees. I want to cut them down because I need to build an outdoor shed. Why do you have right to my trees? Well, they're not your trees. They're just on this property where this area where you built a house sits. No, the local ordinances say that I am the one with the right to exploit the resources of this property, not you. Therefore, if you go and start taking an axe to my trees, I'm going to call the police and say he's trespassing, and then I would have grounds for a suit against you. The laws there protect me and protect my contract arrangement for property. The same thing is true with regulation. The role of regulation is within business is to help establish what are the ground rules for playing the game. And therefore I know where to invest my money and have a reasonable assurance of the predictable outcomes of certain investments. I know that if I spend, let's say I invest $2 million in a broadcast facility, I'm not going to have someone spend, maybe a quarter of that, but they spend it a certain way so that they knock me off the air. I may spend a whole lot of money on good cameras, et cetera, et cetera. They just put all that money into a transmitter and just block me out, and now I can't be heard anyway. They just jam my signal. No, the FCC would come in and tell them cease and desist, stop. And if they don't, they would be able to shut them down. They could arrest them. Okay, so they're protecting my investment. And when the government's functioning properly with regulation, that works, and that's how businesses have a stable environment in which they can predict growth. An example of when government imposed changes would be in the change to digital television. And because they were imposing on broadcasters and the users of the content, although broadcasters had to pay for new transmitters and all that, but at least they gave a window so that you have to replace gear anyway periodically. So they allowed them a window in which time they were going to have to change over from analog to digital. And if they were smart, they would invest, even if they had to replace. We had to do this. We had to buy a new transmitter when we changed our frequency, our channel allotment, due to another thing that happened. So I made sure I invested in a transmitter that could handle both an analog and, not simultaneously, but could do either analog or digital, depending on what kind of exciter, which is what takes the audio and video and makes it a broadcast signal. And I would have to change only that small part of the transmitter system instead of the whole transmitter. So, with enough lead time, you can make reasonable decisions and accurate predictions. So, and then the government also gave vouchers for up to $40 for people to be able to buy these converters that would take a digital broadcast and convert it into a signal that could still be viewed on an analog television, so that people, the consumers, were not going to be forced to have, who may have just spent $300, $400, $1,000 on this big television system, and now it's going to be worthless. And they were imposing a hardship, if you will, by mandating this change in technology. So the government even, like I said, issued vouchers. You had to send in for them, and they would send you back a voucher, and then you take it down to the store, and it would be a $40 credit to buy a $42 converter. So I hand them $5, and I've got my converter. So, government does have a role in regulation, with regulation, and when it's working well, it's establishing a uniform playing field, has an established set of rules so that practitioners in that industry can make reasonable investments with a fairly predictable return on their investment. Pardon me. So, yeah, I have bagpipes on my cell phone. So, as you read, when you're looking at your 20 chapters, and as you read, I want you to choose a theme, an idea, an item. If you're talking about signage, whether you're talking about gaming, radio, whatever it might be, take one particular aspect, and I want you to look at it in terms of either how the technology plays a role, how the role of programming, what do they use to attract an audience, is it paid for? How does it, I'm not saying look at all four of these. I'm saying choose an aspect of that chapter and look at it in terms of one of these aspects in 100 words. Look at, like I said, technology, how they attract an audience to programming, how it pays for itself, or the role of the government in regulation. So this is the end of Chapter 1's presentation and and as well as your introduction to the class. Hope you have some fun.